Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. I try to be a really peppy, really positive person, but there are certain things that I always feel like need to be said, and I'm happy to be the person to say them. Today we're going to be talking about reverse racism, since there seems to be some confusion, particularly within the United States, where I live. So, Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines racism as a belief that race is the primary determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. Or, a doctrine or political program based on the assumption of racism and designed to execute its principles. A political or social system founded on racism. And a racial prejudice or discrimination. So, people think reverse racism is somehow different. And the thing is that most of the people who are complaining about reverse racism aren't thinking about the definition of racism as it actually is, but the definition of racism that we are seeing in sort of today's society. The problem here is that racism, as we've just seen, is literally just looking down on other people because of an arbitrary difference, right? Which means that reverse racism isn't a thing. I'm not saying that, and it is mostly Caucasian people who are saying that they're feeling the effects of reverse racism, but it's not to say that racism towards that particular group does not exist. It's just saying that racism is a thing that divides people. We all know that race is already like a different kettle of fish. It's a social construct. It has nothing to do with biology. But the idea that somehow reverse racism can exist because racism is only when you go against groups that aren't white also creates the divide of us versus them, and the out group and the in group in like psychology, where it's like the in group is the us and the out group is the them, and that's immediately making everyone who's not white, so we all have to fall under the POC umbrella, are the only people who can experience racism. And I'm not saying that those of us who are part of the out group, if you will, aren't experiencing more racism, but I am saying that reverse racism is honestly probably one of the dumbest terms I've ever heard in my entire life. It can't exist, because reverse racism would be equality. Reverse racism would be flipping racism, which would be we all love each other based on the color of our skin. It would not be people of color hating on white people. It doesn't even make sense. I guess that what I'm trying to say is that we should just call it what it is. So if there are people who are feeling attacked based on their race, it's just always racism. You don't get to have a special term that's about when you feel attacked by people of color, it's somehow the reverse of racism. Racism was invented as a way to keep populations of people who looked different from us down in an effort to keep society segregated. So, reverse racism is a social construct developed to make the people who form a majority of the United States population, which is changing as we speak, to keep the majority down? I don't get it. And that's all she wrote. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and If you want to be notified the next time I make a video, please hit that little bell button and it'll let you know. Thanks. Have a great weekend.